A dire warning for Democrats. The Supreme Court's apparent mission to destroy the Voting Rights Act could hand Republicans an unprecedented electoral advantage. But here's where it gets controversial. If the Republican-appointed justices succeed in dismantling federal protections for minority representation, as hinted during the Calais v. Louisiana arguments, Southern states could quickly manipulate voting districts to marginalize Black and brown communities. This would result in white voters having near total control over congressional maps, potentially gifting the GOP with 15 to 19 additional seats in the House of Representatives. As the New York Times' Nate Cohn points out, this could make it nearly impossible for Democrats to gain control of the House outside of rare blue wave elections. However, a Republican near-permanent House majority isn't a done deal, even if the Supreme Court deals a fatal blow to minority voting rights. The court's decision would also free blue states to create more effective Democratic gerrymanders, potentially redistributing voters to maximize the party's electoral advantage. Without the constraints of the VRA, states like New York, New Jersey, and Illinois could move Democratic voters from deep blue districts into red and purple districts, eliminating over a dozen Republican seats in the House. This strategy comes with trade-offs. Congress could become less diverse, with racial minorities in blue states having fewer opportunities to elect their preferred representatives. The number of competitive House elections would also decrease, further eroding Democratic accountability. Yet the overall effect could be a significant boost for the Democratic Party, potentially offsetting many of the gains Republicans are expected to make. The outcome might not be a Republican-dominated House, but rather a Congress with fewer members of color, an outcome that the justices seem willing to accept, as they dismissed the importance of the Voting Rights Act during the Calais hearing. A broad ruling in Calais could force blue states to redraw their majority-minority districts. The Republican-appointed justices appear eager to rule that the Constitution prohibits states from considering race when drawing congressional maps. This would effectively dismantle Section 2 of the VRA, which guarantees fair representation for racial minorities. The impact on Democrats in the South would be severe. Many left-leaning districts were created solely to comply with the VRA. Without it, red states could eliminate these districts to create more safe GOP seats. Governor Ron DeSantis has already suggested that Florida will undertake mid-decade redistricting if the Supreme Court weakens the VRA, and several other states may follow suit. These new maps would dilute the votes of racial minorities, giving white Republican voters more control over congressional seats. But there's a silver lining. Blue states also have majority-minority districts drawn in good faith to comply with the VRA. Democratic legislatures typically create these districts to ensure racial minorities have a fair chance to elect their preferred candidates. While this approach may not create the most efficient gerrymanders, it has allowed for stronger representation for racial minorities and a more diverse congressional delegation. Without the VRA, blue states would no longer be obligated to maintain these districts. In fact, they might need to redraw them to avoid legal challenges. By unpacking these districts, Democratic legislatures could redistribute racial minorities into whiter districts, converting Democratic votes into House seats more efficiently. While this would reduce the opportunity for minorities to elect their preferred representatives, it would also dilute Republican votes, ensuring Democrats win more seats overall. Take New York, for example. The state currently has 26 House seats, with 19 Democrats and 7 Republicans. Many of these districts are majority-minority, especially in and around New York City. If the legislature unpacks these districts by dispersing minorities into areas dominated by white Republicans, it could create a map that gives Democrats 24 seats and Republicans just 2. That's a significant gain for the Democratic Party. Similar opportunities exist in New Jersey, where the House delegation is split between 9 Democrats and 3 Republicans. By redistributing non-white voters more efficiently, Democrats could likely pick up 1 or 2 more seats. In Illinois, where 14 Democrats and 3 Republicans currently serve in the House, unpacking the state's 5 majority-minority districts could eliminate all GOP representatives, giving Democrats all 17 seats. These gerrymanders could give Democrats 12 additional seats in the House, and that's not even considering California, which is poised to grant Democrats 5 more seats through Proposition 50. While California's new map sacrifices some electoral efficiency to preserve VRA-compliant districts, after Calais, the state could enact an even more aggressive gerrymander, awarding Democrats several more seats. There are challenges to implementing these plans. New York and New Jersey, for instance, give primary redistricting authority to bipartisan commissions, which may not favor one party over another. However, California has a similar system, and Governor Gavin Newsom is exploring ways to work around it. Both New York and New Jersey have time to amend their constitutions before the 2028 elections, when the full impact of Calais will likely be felt. In Nevada, a Republican governor would likely reject any new gerrymander, so voters would need to elect a Democratic supermajority in the legislature to override his veto. While there are obstacles, none are insurmountable. Democrats just need to match the resolve and strategic thinking that Republicans have demonstrated in their decades-long assault on the Voting Rights Act. Unfortunately, this plan has 2 major drawbacks. The number of competitive elections will decrease, and non-white representation will almost certainly fall. Majority-minority districts have long driven diversity in the House, as intended by the VRA, and their decline would likely deprive Black, Hispanic, and many other voices prominently represented on the Voting Rights Act in the United States, and Asian Americans of the federal representation they deserve. At the same time, blue states' efforts to preserve these seats have created more evenly divided districts elsewhere, giving voters a meaningful choice at a time when competitive races are becoming increasingly rare. When the Supreme Court guts the Voting Rights Act, blue states will not be to blame. The question will be how best to respond to the judicial dismantling of a landmark civil rights statute that did more to advance multiracial democracy than any other law in history. Democrats can either fight a losing battle for minority representation or exploit the wreckage to build a new map of power.